Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into some really unique source material. We're going deep, looking at the lives, the operations, the ethics, everything surrounding the Republic's clone commandos.
And not just them, but the Null ARCs too. They're Mandalorian trainers, guys like Kal Skirata and even the Jedi generals who ended up working alongside them.
Exactly. We're trying to get past the battles, and really understand these soldiers as individuals, how they saw themselves, the moral tightropes they walked.
Yeah, it's a fascinating look at identity, really. Forged in these extreme conditions, accelerated aging, constant war. These men were created to be tools, basically, assets.
But they didn't stay that way, did they? That Mandalorian influence, that adopted culture, it taught them to see themselves differently.
Absolutely. And the sources, they don't pull any punches. They drop you right into the thick of it, the day-to-day reality for these commandos.
Okay, let's start there then. The soldiers' reality, the clone commandos, the RCs. What hits you first is that armor. Black Katarn armor.
Right. Iconic. Looks incredibly intimidating, doesn't it? But as you dig into the details, you find out it's actually terrible for camouflage. Just awful.
Which seems counterintuitive for elite troops.
It does, but the armor itself is a beast. The sources describe it taking a direct hit from a medium laser cannon, and it just dents the plasteel. That's serious protection.
Vacuum-proof, too. State-of-the-art filtration.
Yeah.
But yeah, that black color against standard Republic gray, they must have stuck out like anything.
They absolutely did. It suggests their strategy wasn't about hiding. It was about speed, aggression, being the toughest thing on the field, shock and awe, almost.
Makes sense. And the sources really bring out their coping mechanism, right? The humor.
Definitely. That dark humor, they joke constantly, try to keep laughing. The line is they do it to avoid calculating the odds.
Because if you stop to think about it,
you'd freeze. Exactly. You'd realize the sheer insanity of what you're doing. So humor becomes this essential survival tool, almost part of their standard operating procedure.
And when they do stop, when they think about what they actually want out of life, it's surprisingly simple.
It really is. It's not glory or medals. It's robosteak, huge cake, that really rich, dense stuff.
Or just a quiet beer down on Coruscant's 000 level. Simple human things. They're fighting for this abstract republic they barely know, but what keeps them going are these really mundane desires.
Which underscores how separated they are from that normal life. Their whole world is hyper-specialized. The jargon, the gear, it all sets them apart.
You see it immediately in how they talk. They don't use standard military speak all the time. That gunship, the LA-8.
I call it a lardy. Yeah, affectionate maybe, or maybe just cynical. Hard to tell sometimes.
And inside the helmet, that HUD, the heads-up display, it's not just for aiming.
No way. It's throwing data at them constantly. Atmospheric readings, tactical maps, IFF tags, just a constant stream of information they have to process instantly. Combat for them is as much about data management as shooting.
And going back to the armor for a sec, that Katarn armor, it's vacuum-proof, yes, but the sources mentioned there's only a 20-minute limit on internal air without backup.
Right, 20 minutes. Think about that. Any kind of systems failure, any hull breach, and suddenly you're on a very hard clock. It highlights that razor's edge they live on, technologically advanced, but still fundamentally vulnerable.
And when they do engage, it's brutal efficiency. There's that example with the Plex rocket launcher.
Oh, yeah. That's heavy ordnance meant for taking out bunkers, not just droids.
But they use it for what they call a quick hello, just obliterate a group of droids. And they even note the droids aren't made of frick, that super tough metal.
It's about overwhelming force, not just stopping the enemy, but removing them from the equation violently and decisively. No messing around.
But all this constant pressure, the brutality, it changes them. The sources talk about how different they are after just a year of war.
Definitely. Less idealistic. More hardened, more worldly-wise, I guess you'd say. And this starts to affect the Jedi working with them, too.
Particularly General Etain Tur-Mukan. She seems to really grasp the psychological toll. Her thoughts on fear are, well, they're striking.
They really are. She kind of cuts through that traditional Jedi no-fear thing. She sees fear as practical, an asset even, an incentive, a tool.
She says only idiots don't fear combat.
Exactly. And for these commandos, hearing that from a Jedi general, that must have been huge. It validates their experience, acknowledges their humanity. It says, yeah, it's okay to be scared. It means you're paying attention.
And that distinction between being seen as human versus just an asset, that's critical. The Kaminoans who made them, purely assets, tools, expendable.
But Etain starts changing that perception. She tells them straight up, I don't want you to die. Not because they're useful, but because she values them.
That's a massive shift for guys bred just for a function. Survival versus utility. It's the start of them figuring out who they are.
And it really sets the stage for understanding their origins, how they were trained, and why that training was so different.
Right, we have to go back. Back to Commando, the cloning facility. And the guys Jango Fett brought in to train his army.
The Coivil Dar, that's the key.
Yeah.
Jango needed the best soldiers in the galaxy, sure. But more than that, he needed guys who could just disappear, vanish completely.
Those who no longer exist. That's what Coivil Dar means.
Exactly. 100 of them, experts in their fields, paid a fortune to cut all ties, erase their pasts, and dedicate themselves to raising this clone army in total secrecy. And Kal Skirata was one of the most important ones.
His arrival on Commando, it's like a clash of civilizations in miniature.
It really is. You've got Skirata, this gruff, pragmatic Mandalorian warrior, steeped in a culture of family and martial pride, landing in this sterile, cold, utterly alien environment.
The descriptions of Commando are chilling. Endless ocean, constant rain, but it's all soundproofed, so it's unnervingly quiet, except for this irritating lightning pulse you can feel.
And the Kaminoans themselves, tall, thin, those cold yellow eyes, just dripping with arrogance, utterly convinced of their own perfection.
And they hit Skirata with it immediately. They notice his limp, an old war wound.
And they ask him if he minds being defective, just like that, coldly. Any biological imperfection to them is a flaw, an error in the system. It tells you everything about their mindset.
Skirata thought he was there to train grown men, right? Seasoned warriors.
Yeah, he was expecting adults. What he got, that was the moment that changed everything for him. They bring him to meet the first units, the Null ARCs.
And they're just
children.
6 identical little boys, looking maybe 4 or 5 years old physically, huddled together, wearing these dark blue tunics. Skirata's expecting soldiers, and he sees kids. He's instantly floored.
And the Kaminoan handler, Orinwa, is just blank. Describes them as defective, Null-class. Says they're unresponsive to commands, challenging authority, so they're basically marked for disposal.
But even as he says that, Skirata sees something else. One of the boys immediately steps forward, shields the others. Basic defensive posture.
Yeah.
Discipline. Not defiance, but instinct.
And then that connection happens. Skirata reaches out, tries to be reassuring, and one of the little boys grabs his finger, just clamps down. Tight. Possessive. In that instant, Skirata's perspective shifts entirely. These aren't units. They're children.
And then he learns they're chronologically only 2 years old. That accelerated aging just makes it worse. They look 4 or 5, but they're toddlers, essentially.
Toddlers who the Kaminoans called defective because they challenged security, stole a weapon, almost shot a Kaminoan who was probably threatening them. Skirata sees that not as a defect, but as exactly what a soldier should do, survive. Defend.
Jango Fett backs Skirata up on this, doesn't he? He says they've got the right stuff.
He does, and he tells Skirata, train them. But Skirata's training is immediately going to be different from the Kaminoan standard because he knows he's dealing with children.
So it's not just drills and tactics, it's psychology.
Battle psychology, yeah. But taught to kids, how do you explain adrenaline to a 4-year-old? The source says he asks them how fear feels.
And they describe it as cold and spiky.
Yeah. And Skirata doesn't dismiss it. He validates it. He says, okay, that feeling, that's your alarm system. It means your body's ready to run faster, fight harder. He turns the fear into a tool, something useful.
He's basically parenting them militarily.
He becomes Kalbur, Father Kal. He teaches them survival, not just combat. Like during those intense Kaminoan storms, the lightning freaks them out, understandably.
And Skirata.
He doesn't tell them to tough it out. He comforts them. He relates the lightning, the thunder, to something they need to get used to, like the bombs going off. He acknowledges the fear, but frames it within their reality.
It's this incredibly unconventional upbringing, part boot camp, part, well, fatherhood.
And that is the foundation for the fierce loyalty you see later. He wasn't just barking orders. He was their anchor, their buur, in this cold, sterile world that saw them as disposable.
Which creates this fundamental tension, doesn't it? Bred by the Kaminoans for the Republic, but raised by a Mandalorian father figure. Obedience versus survival. Utility versus family.
Exactly. And that tension plays out dramatically when they get deployed to Coruscant for these black operations.
Right, moving from clear battlefields to the murky world of urban anti-terrorism. Huge shift.
Massive. And the stakes feel much more personal, more ethically complicated.
It kicks off with that bombing at Bravo 8 Depot.
Yeah.
15 dead, mostly civilians. Skirata gets pulled in.
And his reaction isn't procedural. It's visceral. He takes it personally. He wants revenge. The line is he wants to rip some Shakar's guts out. That's Mendoa for scum. It's pure paternal rage.
They bring in Jedi assistants, General Bardan Jusik. He uses the Force at the site.
And feels the destruction, the pain, yeah. But what strikes him is the absence of the enemy. They weren't physically there. Remote detonation, maybe, or something?
Yeah.
Stuffier.
Skirata sees this, knows it's complex, and he lays down the law. He'll help, but on his terms.
His terms are enlistment in the GAR as a special advisor, and he gets his Null ARCs back, his lads.
And the loyalty there is absolute. Ordo, one of the Nulls, basically ignores the Jedi General, Zay. Makes it clear he answers only to Skirata.
Which must have really thrown Zay off. Here's this highly capable soldier, completely outside the normal chain of command. It lets Skirata run his own show, essentially.
A shadow war. And the plan is intense. Delta and Omega squads running an unauthorized shoot-to-kill operation.
Going bandit, Ordo calls it. Operating completely off the books, outside the rules of engagement.
Going bandit means doing things that push ethical boundaries, especially intelligence gathering. Skirata has to bring in Wall and Val.
Yeah, the other main Mandalorian trainer. And Skirata hates Val, loathes his methods, finds him pathologically brutal, but he needs him for interrogation.
Val's technique is described as chilling, soft-spoken, offers the detainees a room, a conversation. It's detached, clinical cruelty.
And this leads to maybe the toughest moment for Jedi Etain Tur-Mukan. Skirata needs intelligence fast. He asks her, he basically orders her, to torture a prisoner named Orjol, use the Force to break him.
You can just imagine her horror. A Jedi asked to inflict pain, to torture. The sources say she does it, but it wrecks her. Physically sick, questioning everything she believes in.
And it forces her into this really uncomfortable comparison. She sees Val, the guy who embodies brutality, acting without any anger, any malice. He genuinely seems to think he's doing good work, just necessary work.
Which makes her question the whole nature of the dark side, right?
Yeah.
Is it about passion and anger? Or can it just be this cold, detached expediency?
Exactly. Is Val's emotionless cruelty somehow worse, more dangerous than Skirata's hot-blooded rage? Skirata's anger is focused, protective. Val's detachment seems to allow for anything as long as it's efficient. It's a deeply unsettling thought.
For Etain, and for us reading it, it really muddies the traditional light-dark moral framework.
It absolutely does. And this moral compromise immediately gives way to practical necessity. They need to find the leak in GAR logistics. The mole hunt begins. Targets. Vinagis and her associate, Bazani Wenin.
And Ordo, the Null ARC, goes deep undercover, uses his perfect memory to mimic another trooper core. Voice, mannerisms, everything. Infiltrates logistics.
He gets the intel, confirms the leak, but then he sees Vinagis again, which is impossible because Val reported killing her, pushed her off a balcony.
That's the bombshell.
Yeah.
Etain puts it together. The enemy isn't just Separatist agents. They're dealing with Gurlanans, shapeshifters.
And telepathic shapeshifters, crucially, they can mask their presence in the Force, which means the Republic broke some old treaty and now there's this invisible army on Coruscant watching them, judging the Jedi.
That raises the stakes immensely. Suddenly, any operation could be compromised by an enemy they can't even see or sense.
Which leads to some incredibly risky missions, like Omega Squad's boarding operation in Zero-G.
Right, trying to capture some Separatist agents, the Hurun. Zero-G boarding is dangerous enough.
And then there's a hull breach. Suddenly, they're in hard vacuum. Their armor's only got that 20-minute air supply.
They hit the panic button. Red 0. Immediate emergency extraction needed. Catastrophic failure.
Back on Coruscant, Skirata and Ordo are watching this unfold on the HoloLink, just watching their brothers potentially dying, unable to do anything directly. The tension must have been unbearable.
The Delta Squad pulls off a miracle. Boss, Fixer, Scorch, Sev.
They execute this insane maneuver, an inverted hatch-to-hatch docking, basically flying their gunship upside down, latching onto the compromised ship, all while under fire.
And they have to prioritize grabbing the prisoners, too, not just saving Omega.
And they do it. They get everyone out. The sources say they beat the galactic record for speed on that kind of extraction under fire. It's an incredible display of skill, coordination, and trust.
That level of trust, that synchronization, it only comes from the kind of bond they have. Which brings us right back to their culture, that sense of kinship.
Absolutely. That near disaster just highlights why their unique culture is so vital. It's the glue that holds them together against the impersonality of the GAR, the horrors of war.
And language is central to that, isn't it? Andoa.
It's more than just words. It's identity. Vod. Brother. Vodika. Little brother. Brr. Father. These aren't just labels, they're fundamental relationships. And they have words for outsiders. Traitors, Arudi. It defines their circle.
And their own slang evolves so fast, Etain can barely keep up. Lardy, RPC, MRU.
RPC. Request the pleasure of your company, MRU. Much regret, unable. They're inventing social codes, even within their military jargon.
Why do that? Why create specialized slang for, like, declining an invitation?
It reinforces their distinctiveness, their separateness. They're building their own little society within the army, with its own rules, its own etiquette. It helps them navigate being both soldiers and brothers, this weird family unit.
And they maintain those Mandalorian martial traditions, too, like the Da Verda chant.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful. Done without helmets. It requires incredible timing, stamina, complete trust in the guys next to you. It's a ritual display of their shared discipline, their heritage.
Even Captain Mays, an ARC trooper who seems a bit more by the book, joins in.
Shows how deep that Mandalorian training went, beyond just the Commandos. It permeated the Special Forces culture Django set up. But the heart of it all, emotionally, is Skirata.
Kalbur. His whole worldview seems shaped by that Mandalorian ideal. Warrior, father, son, self-reliance, and love.
But it costs him. The guilt he carries. It's immense. He talks about sending 10-year-old boys who look maybe 12 or 13 because of the aging into live fire exercises, sometimes giving them his weapon.
He calls himself a rotten father. Worries constantly about outliving them all.
And that fear, that guilt, fuels his ferocious protectiveness, but it also forces him into these contradictions. He hates Vow's methods.
The brutality making them fight each other, the whole messy Nerf gut thing.
Right, he loathes it. But he also knows, deep down, that harshness might have been necessary, that killer edge Vow instilled. Maybe that's what kept them alive on Geonosis and beyond.
It's that awful parental dilemma again, isn't it? Doing something painful, maybe morally questionable because you believe it's necessary for your child's survival.
Exactly. Skirata justifies it not as cruelty, but as a kind of terrible love, making them hard enough, lethal enough, to survive the meat grinder waiting for them.
And that internal conflict, that pressure, it surfaces in the clones themselves. They're not just identical soldiers. Their personalities really come through.
You see it with Phi. Seems cheerful on the surface, always cracking jokes, but Etain senses something darker underneath, more desperate. He feels totally alienated from ordinary people, like he doesn't belong anywhere but the battlefield.
And Etain. He holds on to this burning resentment for Vow. It eventually explodes into this brutal fistfight.
Which is a direct result of Vow's training. If Val thought they lacked the killer instinct, he'd make them fight each other. That leaves scars, real emotional scars.
Then there's Darmon. His relationship with Etain. It's forcing him to confront feelings he was never designed to have.
He literally tells her, I was afraid because I didn't know what I was feeling. Imagine that. Engineered for war, suddenly grappling with love, vulnerability, fear that isn't about combat. It's terrifying for him.
And amidst all this, the war, the trauma, the emotional turmoil, Skirata has this secret long-term project running in the background.
His exit strategy for his boys, it's incredible, really. He's using his network, the Nulls like Ordo, contacts like Mariel, and spending his own fortune
to hunt down Kosai, the Kaminoan chief scientist.
And her cloning tech. He wants to find a cure for the accelerated aging. He wants to give them a future, a normal lifespan after the war. It's entirely driven by that paternal love, operating completely under the Republic's radar.
That dedication, that focus on a future beyond the fighting, it all comes to a head in that final big operation on Coruscant, the Core Fresh sting.
Yeah, that was Skirata's masterpiece of manipulation. Core Fresh sounds so boring, like a food distributor or something.
But it's a front. The plan is to lure the Separatist network out by offering them something irresistible. High-grade explosives on the black market.
500-grade thermal explosives. Serious stuff. He sets the price high, 5 million credits, negotiates down to 3, makes it look legit. The middleman is this guy, Pariv.
And Skirata uses Republic resources against them, basically. Gets Senate Public Affairs involved to spin a cover story about gang turf wars.
Right. Uses Mara Rujanian to create noise, distractions, explain away the heavy commando presence needed for the trap. Brilliant misdirection.
Meanwhile, Delta and Omega aren't just waiting, they're actively tagging targets.
using those Verpine sniper rifles again, but this time with non-lethal dust rounds, little trackers. They're painting targets across the city, mapping the whole network in real time before they spring the trap.
But before that main event, Skirata himself takes this insane risk during that hostage crisis at the spaceport.
Oh yeah, the Kal terrorists hold up with Senator Tills and others. Skirata goes in as a negotiator, unarmed, looking like, what, a janitor? Scruffy, small, unassuming.
But he's wired, using a hearing enhancer to feed intel back to his commandos outside, mapping hostage locations, terrorist positions.
And he gives them the ultimate green light. Drop them all, straight through me if need be. Total commitment. Willing to die to save the hostages and get the intel. That's dedication.
While Skirata's doing that, Val and Etain are on another mission, taking out Pariv, the middleman.
Val on the Verpine rifle again. Precision shot. Takes Pariv down on a balcony, but doesn't, so the datapad Pariv is carrying stays tucked in his tunic. Doesn't fall.
Because they need that datapad. And how do they get it?
Murd. The Strill. Val's ugly, smelly Mandalorian hunting pet. It climbs the wall, snatches the datapad. It's bizarre, almost comical, but effective. Shows Val's reliance on these unconventional assets.
And Val's reaction to the creature, clever Murd, it's this weird flicker of warmth in an otherwise cold character, reserved only for his animal.
Strange dude. Anyway, with the datapad secured, the intel gathered, Ordo launches the main assault on the Core Fresh warehouse. Coordinated strike, Miril, Delta, Omega, even Jedi Jusik and Trooper Core are involved.
Tactical perfection, the sources say. Fast, coordinated, overwhelming.
But chaos finds a way, close quarters fighting, an enemy grabs a hostage, swaps clothes. Phi, one of the commandos, almost shoots Skirata by mistake.
Skirata's saved, but the situation is unstable. How does Ordo handle it?
Clinically, brutally. He assesses the remaining hostages. One of them had a weapon, tried to use the confusion. Ordo shoots him, executes him, basically, to regain control, get everyone's attention focused back on him.
His justification. The swapped coat was a giveaway. Cold, efficient, null ARC logic.
It's jarring, but then the cost of the operation falls heavily on the clones. Darman gets hit by a flamethrower.
The description is horrific. Engulfed in white-hot flame, drops to his knees, but doesn't scream. Just takes it, internalizes it. That discipline, even in agony.
Despite that horror, the operation is a tactical success. 97 suspects taken down across Coruscant, a major blow to the Separatist network.
And that final twist, the spaceport terrorists, they were bluffing. The explosives were just junk parts. It wasn't firepower that won there, it was intel and Skirata's nerve.
Yeah. So this whole deep dive, it's just layers of conflict, isn't it? Duty versus family, harshness versus love, tactics versus ethics. Where do we land after processing all this?
I think the resilience is the first thing that stands out. Darman burned, Feige dealing with his issues, all the near misses. Yet they're immediately talking about the next op. Planning.
That Vode bond. Duty to the brothers overrides everything else. It's their whole world.
But the threats aren't gone. Those Gurlin and shapeshifters. They're still out there, that invisible army, watching the Jedi, holding that grudge. It's a lingering, insidious threat.
Which throws the focus back onto Skirata's long game. His sacrifices. He gave up his old life, his money, everything for these clones. He is their future in a way the Republic can never be.
And that leads to the final emotional beat. Etain, pregnant with Darman's child.
A little flicker of life, hope in the Force. But it comes with this terrifying choice for her. If Darman dies, which is highly likely, given his job and aging, she realizes she has to trust Skirata to raise her son.
As a Mandoad. A son of Mandalore, not a Jedi, not a Republic citizen in the traditional sense.
It's her acknowledging that Skirata's way, that fierce, loyal, sometimes brutal path of self-reliance and family, is the only real hope for the child's survival. It's the ultimate validation of the culture they built. Born to serve, but they forged their own meaning, their own family.
So we've seen incredible skill, terrible costs, complex loyalties. It leaves you thinking. We saw Val, the cold, efficient killer, and Skirata, driven by rage and love. In a war like this, which is actually more dangerous to the soul, the absence of passion, or passion itself.
And then there's Darman's future, or lack thereof. A soldier made to die young, now facing fatherhood. What can he possibly offer his child? The sources seem clear. The only hope, the only legacy, isn't with the Republic he serves, but within that hidden Mandalorian family Skirata is trying desperately to protect. That's the only thing that might just last.